This is the state of the nation. Ibifa Uganda. We are deliberate, we are reasonable, we are uncensored. The state of the nation with Henry Sally. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Henry Sally, and I'm privileged to serve you this morning, this afternoon, this evening. For all the folks who are watching the World Cup, I hope you are enjoying it. Today, you can see me in a red tie. That's me trying to support Canada. I am proudly Canadian, Uganda. We shall discuss that later as we continue to discuss these intersectionalities. Of course, I am an accented African Canadian. Well, today we are going to talk about the idea of medical interns, the rule of law, and the 2026-2027 Ugandan budget. And we are interrogating seemingly simple questions, but very important ones. For instance, who is Uganda working for, really? So, for those of you who are familiar with Frantz Fanon, he once warned us that the greatest danger after independence is not always foreign domination. Sometimes it is the emergency of a national elite that inherits the state but forgets the people. It's an elite that learns the language of liberation but masters the practice of exclusion. An elite that speaks endlessly about the development while ordinary citizens struggle to experience it. So today, I want us to begin with a very simple preposition. You do not learn the truth about a nation from its speeches. You learn it from its prisons. You learn it from its hospitals. You also learn it from its budget. You also learn it from what happens when an ordinary citizen struggles to find justice. Other ways you can learn it from is how government treats its young doctors, or from whose priorities appear in the national budget and whose do not. Because budgets are not accounting documents. They are a moral framework for how a nation functions. Prisons are not merely a security framework. They are a reflection on how. Likewise, hospitals are not merely a healthy backbone. They are windows into his values. And so today, as we speak, we have three difficult questions. The first one is how, or rather why, are medical interns still fighting for compensation in a country that claims to prioritize healthcare? Why do Ugandans continue to worry about political prisoners, kidnappings, mob justice, and unexplained killings despite decades of state building and massive investment in security? And what does the 2026-2027 budget reveal about government's actual priorities? Noticing something, there's a separate, they seem to appear as separate conversations. They also seem to appear as conversations about power. right? So who has the power, who benefits from it, and whether public institutions still exist primarily for citizens or increasingly for those who govern them. So we are interested in figuring out these things together. We're also interested in examining accountability in different aspects of how government really functions. Because the role of citizenship is not merely to uphold power, but rather to interrogate it. So welcome to the State of the Nation. Today, our different panelists, as you know them, Mr. Gesa is with us, Dr. Stella is with us, Council Aaron is with us, and of course, Dr. Mirembe is with us, and they're going to be introducing themselves shortly. So thank you so much for joining us, folks. I think I'm going to invite you in the same order that I have introduced you, to introduce yourselves. Yeah, let us start this conversation with Mr. Gesa introducing himself.
Just a one line I think will do. My name is Gesa Ronald Leonard. My names are not commutative. I am a political and business strategist. And that's all I'll say for now.
All right.
Pleasure to be
Dr.
here.
Stella. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stella Nyanzi. I'm a Ugandan anthropologist currently living in Germany as an exile, and I'm glad to be with all of you.
Nice to have you back. Aaron. Unmute yourself. You're still muted. Aaron, do you hear me? All right, let's go to Dr. Mirembe.
Yes, greetings to everyone, wherever you are. Mirembe Joel is my name. I am a medical doctor and an advocate of health equity, and very interested in the governance of my society. Thank you very much. I'm happy.
We are excited to have you here, Dr.
Mr. Sali,
Yes,
could
sir.
it be fine if we refer to Dr. Mirembe as Yoweri?
I know, right? Of course, it's Yoweri. His name is Yoweri. It's a mere translation of the name from an
You see, my third generation grandfather was called Yoweri. I don't know where he got that name, because that is very many years ago, hundreds. So I think that's why they picked the name. But when I reached P6, I rejected the Yoweri format.
I think for me, combining Yoweri and Mirembe doesn't add up. If it was Yoweri someone else, fine, but Yoweri Mirembe, apana.
Actually, many people call me Yoweri somewhere in the village. But anyway, my name is Mirembe Joel Suvuga. Yeah. But Yoweri, the current Yoweri spelled all the meat being referred to as Yoweri somewhere can even earn you sticks. So there is no pride in associating
with the name
myself with a big man at Plot 1.
Well,
thank you.
You could be the next big man at Plot 1, so anything is possible at this moment. Aaron, do you hear us?
Yes, now I can hear you. I had to switch off and come back to hear you. So yes, I'm Aaron Chiza. I'm very happy to be part of this discussion.
All right. Thank you so much again for joining us. For everyone that has really managed to be with us today. I think it's always important for us to convene and share some of these conversations because they are important conversations, really. And at a time when we are facing different challenges in a country that continues to renew its mandate, whether legitimately or illegitimately, depending on which angle you choose to be, where you choose to be. I think it's always important to have these discussions because they're just simply important. So, Dr. Milembe, help us understand the reality on the ground. What does Uganda's treatment of medical interns reveal about the country's priorities? Because we know that many Ugandans hear medical intern and assume we are talking about students, right? But these people delivering babies, assisting surgeries, staffing emergency wards and keeping hospitals running, right? If every medical intern in Uganda stopped working tomorrow, what would happen to the healthcare system? Dr. Mirembe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Henry. I'll use myself as an example to illustrate this, and for any Ugandan who is tuning in and those who will see this presentation later, we are talking about people who are fully qualified as medical doctors, people who are fully qualified as pharmacists at a degree level, and nurses at a degree level. Just for context, the internship that our people and the politicians deliberately, I want to assume the politicians actually know the truth, but they deliberately trade a false picture to try to win unnecessary, to secure unnecessary win. The internship that they usually talk about, for example, our colleagues, the teachers, when they are training, they do what we call school practice. We do it. And for us, we started way earlier. You know, just briefly, in medical school, when I went there, year one, I worked with dead bodies, studied the basic sciences, and year two as well. And in year three, I went to hospital. And this time, we were studying bedside. And on the studying bedside, we studied for an entire year. Then in year four, we the patient freely tell them actually you're a student and whatever you're going to do is going to be subject to approval from a senior doctor. And the senior doctor at that time included the intern doctor. Okay, so when we were undergraduate, we were taught, we were supervised by the intern doctor, then the general doctors, then the specialists, and the consultants and the senior consultants. So we did this internship in context, in courts, for 3 years. In fact, we did within what we call community placement. For 10 months, Mbara University placed me at the Bihar Health Center, and I was there for 10 months doing a project, doing research, seeing patients. And this time, at that placement, when I was a fourth-year student, I didn't have supervisors came like twice a week, not twice a week, twice a month. They could come and check on us, how we're progressing, and we're providing care. But this time, there was reports we were writing to see that things are going on well. So when a doctor in Ugandan context, East African context, finally graduates, they have done that section of the so-called internship. And this time now, they are supposed to practice, and you know, medicine, like many other professions which have been undergone the regulation to an international level, doing internship is not a Ugandan thing. Uganda just adopted a global standard. So these young people deserve pay because actually you are working. But the issue is that you are working under supervision. And the Ugandan law says you must first of all receive deployment from government. And the intern doctors, I'll use intern doctors, but when I use it, literally refers to everyone else. Currently in Uganda, we have only 3 categories. We have intern doctors, intern nurses and midwives. Those are bachelor nurses and bachelor midwives who have studied that straight from year 1 up to year 4, because for them they do 4 years. But those ones actually who employed for internship. And of course the pharmacists who still, when you have done it from year 1 to year 4, because pharmacists also do 4 years, doctors who are doing 5 years. So for those ones, those are the ones who are deployed. So when you're deployed, you are working. That's the truth. And some people have said, you know, these guys are given taxpayers' money as little as 700. I received 750, which was withheld by Diana Twin and her team for over 7 months. It took about 7 months when I'm not being paid. The only intern who was not being paid in 2018 and 2019. And the reason was simple, because I started the Federation for Uganda Medical Interns, so I was putting a solid voice for interns, so I was being punished. Of course, later, the elders in the profession came in, and some Sante came in, and I was paid my money. But the issue is that these people work, and I will illustrate. I did over 50 cesarean sections, and that was at Kawempe National Referral Hospital, a hospital which is specializing in the women and child health care. And at that particular facility, it's a government facility, but has a private wing. The cesarean section is 2.5 million. And I speak this not because I'm hard, but because myself I've delivered my children from Kawempe National Referral Hospital. And that was the charge. And of course, me, I'm a doctor, I may get a percentage of a waiver, but for any other ordinary person, that's what they pay. So calculate 50 cesarean sections times 2.5 million. That's around 125 million if you do the simple math. So, and how much was I paid when I was an intern? 11 million. You get it? For the 12 months I worked. So the intern gives more. And I can tell you, we have, you know, they say interns are very many. We were overworking. We had timetables, but we were overworking. And general hospitals don't have interns currently in Uganda, but these are hospitals which actually need deployment of intern doctors because they have overwhelming numbers of patients who are not receiving proper care because the staffing there is very, like, I don't even know how to describe it. When you look at the ministry data about government staffing, it's very miserable. Where you need 10 doctors, you have 2. Where you need 10 nurses, you have 2, 1, 3. You know, critical care we don't have everywhere. But then these interns, when we get there, we are deployed. I use we because I've done internship before, but I finished my internship in 2018, 2019, October. So they are deployed as special purpose vehicles. Some are deployed into intensive care, others are deployed into general wards, others are deployed into outpatient units, such that every unit now gets a beef up of labor. And then these people work all those inhuman hours. But government didn't start, by the way, the notion of not paying now. They started in 2016. I was a third-year medical student. I remember very well. I was the lead of medical students across the country, and we mobilized medical students against this. We even went to court. So It's not new. Even brought a policy in 2017 later, which we discussed and third disease discriminatory clauses. We rejected that policy because one, it wanted to pay only those ones who were sponsored by State House and those ones who had scholarships, which were government merit scholarship. Our, of course, argument is still the same. After I have graduated, the patients I treat, it doesn't matter whether my mother paid for me, or government paid for me, or some anonymous sponsor from outside this country or in this country paid for me. What matters is the skill set. I have the skills, yes. Then I deserve to be paid for my labor. That's it. And at the different levels, of course, the nurses should be paid at the level of the nurses, the doctors at the level of the doctors. And of course, before this government came in place, interns were paid as probation officers. And that meant they could receive 75% of the payment that those ones who are already under public services are receiving. And we did this when I was leader. Then we negotiated at the level. Parliamentary committee did an evaluation of the work of the intern doctor. And actually for the Parliamentary Committee on Health, recommended that actually interns are paid at the same level of the starting medical officers. What they said, maybe they should not receive pension, but for the 1 year they should be paid the same salary as the starting medical officer. Then later, they didn't implement it, and the interns, they brought back that not paying notion, and the senior doctors laid down tools. A team under the leadership of Federation for Uganda Medical Interns, which myself I started actually, and then I was serving as a trustee board member, organized a meeting to State House. The 7 realized, had access to that report and said they are starting with 50% then. So the 50% was implemented in 2021. They started paying the intern doctor 2.5 million gross. Of course, it could be taxed to 1.8 million as net pay. And it started. Then out of the blue, Nabanja comes up and some funny team, they say they don't have money, they don't want to pay, we refused. They said they are paying 1 million. We advised the younger colleagues to, okay, go and start work as we negotiate for reinstatement of the 2.5 million and the 1.5 million, which was given to nurses then and the pharmacists and the midwives and the dental surgeons. Dental surgeons were paid as the intern doctors, 2.5. And the negotiation tried to go on, but they, tried to suffocate everything, and it didn't yield up to where we are, where they had come up with a notion that they don't actually want to pay. If your mother, your father, or any well-wisher paid for you, they are like now they want to criminalize. They want to make it a crime for someone to do medicine when they're not sponsored by the government. If they want to do that, they should go at a policy level and stop at private universities from admitting people to do medicine and surgery, to do nursing, if that's what they want. But that is still a wrong move, because this country needs more doctors, needs more nurses, needs more dental surgeons, among others. Ministry of Health data, and this is very policy actually, we are requesting them and forcing them, doing whatever it takes, such that they halt it, has a section which has statistics. And in that very policy they are saying, government needs to put in place an environment for in the next 5-10 years, at least 20,000 medical students to go to medical school and graduate. Now, you cannot be the same person saying you need more numbers, then you don't want to provide the resources to facilitate those numbers when they leave school.
Right. Thank you so much,
But
Dr.
who better scientists than people who went to medical school, put in sciences, excelled, and did go to medical school? Who is a better scientist than them? Because when you look at national cutoffs, As I summarize, usually the highest cutoffs go for medicine, go for surgery, go for pharmacy and law. So how comes these statistics are in place, but the government is saying otherwise? And lastly, there's the issue of no money. We have said as Uganda Medical Association, because I sit on the National Governing Council of Uganda Medical Association as a immediate past Secretary General, but also a representative of the association to some government entity. We have said, and we continue to say, the money is there. What is happening is a betrayal of national priorities. I will use the budget of the Speaker of Parliament allowances and his deputy to illustrate this. When you look at the current budget, they were given over 50 billion to spend on advertising, travel, inland and out of the country. Yet, the same people gave 0 shilling to 1,000 intern doctors who need just 25 billion. And for context, Uganda doesn't have 1,000. That is a projected figure because last year we had that figure of 1,000 because there was a backlog of undeployed intern doctors. I want to first stop at this. Maybe I will say the other things later. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Mirembe, for this broad context of what is really happening in Uganda, what is happening to the medical interns, how government has responded. Of course, you have mentioned how government tends to say that there's no money. Yet, when you look at how much money they are spending on parliament, how much money they are spending in other areas of government, we know that the money is there. So I'm going to invite my friend, Dr. Stella. Based on what you have heard so far, what are your thoughts? How do you respond to the context that Dr. Mirembe has shared? And what message do you think government is sending on how Ugandan values young professionals is at the current?
You're in my frame.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much, Henry. And it's wonderful to hear firsthand from Dr. Mirembe, who, as he explained to us, was among those who originated the Federation of Medical Interns Association, because I think part of what's important is the collective coming together collectively to make your case heard. And I think that when Dr. Mirembe talked about his allowance being withheld for months as punishment because he was organizing, I think for me, it immediately spoke to the importance of the medical interns coming together. And I think we have seen in this moment, I watched the different medical fraternities, the dentists, the pharmacists, the intern medics, intern midwives and nurses coming together. I think even the pharmacists were there, coming together and speaking with lawyers about how they can unionize or maybe collectively organize around the issue. I think that if it's just the interns organizing on their own, there is power in coming together, but working collectively as all professionals in Uganda to say enough is important. So I think for me, the first point is in terms of resistance and organizing resistance to this policy, which is unacceptable, it's important to collectively come together. And I think the intergenerational, interdisciplinary, the different disciplines within the biomedical sciences coming together is important. I think the second important thing for me was that clarification that medical interns are not students. There's a tendency with these policymakers to say the student bakola practical, bakola internship, bakola, other disciplines have got this component to training, but what has been made clear, especially to those of us who are listening to the medical professionals, is that a medical intern is actually already trained. They have all their qualifications, and what they're doing is what Dr. Mirembe explained. They are baby doctors under supervision, but really, so that's the second point for me. To understand who a medical intern is important. It's very possible that people who made the policy, if they're not medics, they don't know, right? They don't know who they are dealing with. And so the idea is to undermine the important work and the necessary qualifications, the required qualifications, which have already been obtained by the medical intern corps. It's important that we clarify ourselves about that. So tetwogera kuba student, twogera kuba sawo abamaze okusoma. And I think for me that's an important clarification. Now, for me as a woman, perhaps the only woman on the panel, I want to say that the burden of health care is undertaken by women. Poor women in Uganda go to public hospitals. We know what it means to get there. And the senior doctors, the specialists are not there. And even if the specialists were there, our incomes are too little to afford that specialized care. And the people who take care of our people, to take care of us when we're giving birth, the people who are on call, almost overworked, underpaid, unappreciated, are intern doctors. Many times without supervision. I know women upon women upon women upon women who have delivered under the hands of interns. Given birth under the hands of interns. And so I think for me, you began introducing by asking about who the leadership in a country works for. For whom do the elite work for? Poor women in Uganda, women generally in Uganda who need health care, who need to take care of our sick comrades, sick family members, sick spouses, sick children. We need our intern doctors taken care of because they are often our first port of call. And for me, I'm saying this from the perspective of a carer. The senior professionals who are there, we appreciate their work, we appreciate their enumeration, perhaps they deserve more. But for those of us who are poor women, by intern, right? I think in terms of the question around sectors, I don't know if it is the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Education that made this blunder of a policy, right? But I think in terms of getting solutions,
actually, the point was made by Ministry of Education and just co-opted the ministers from health to side.
Thank you for that point of information. I think for me that on matters concerning medical interns, that what was the first point that was important in terms of going forward is all the medical fraternities, the different groupings rejected this policy. I have had them personally in different professional meetings. The last one was under the Uganda Law Society, where they came together and all of them, without any deviation, said we reject this policy. And I think for me, the question around the Ministry of Education sitting to make a policy about the medical profession sort of is based on that wrong foundation of assuming that medical interns are students who are still under the Ministry of Education. Okay, if the policy must be made, I think it's important that specialists in the Ministry of Health, we know that Dr. Chris Bariomunsi, who can be objective and who can work for Ugandans and forget about the politics. He's shown previously that he has the capacity to do so, even when he's become co-opted into a cadre minister. We know that his experience as an intern doctor himself, as a medical professional, was often for the remuneration, the just remuneration of medical interns. So can the Ministry of Health and its technical corps work together with the Ministry of Education? Last week, I had a problem with having a dead minister chairing the Ministry of Education. But we can see already that these interrelated connections, the tentacles of what's happening in Ministry of Education and its inefficient oversight is now crawling into medical interns. It is not today's problem, it's historical. Thank you for telling us about the history of these negotiations, Dr. Mirembe. But I think for me, one of the problems is the merging of sectors and allowing a Ministry of Education to take priority in making decisions about medical interns. But we need the medical doctors to sit together with the education professionals who are making this policy reform. And I think for me, the very last bit is that this must become a citizens' issue. We may not have enough understanding, so that clarifying all the time that the different medical professional bodies are doing is important. Bring us on board because we pay school fees. We are the parents of private students who are being excluded from participating as medical interns. We are the parents, we are the ones who are now being penalized because when our children did not qualify for a government scholarship or they did not qualify for state house funding, we decided to pay privately. We are the ones who's, like I said, bring the women on board. We are the ones who know the power, the pain, mourning our dead in hospital. Often the news is given to us by a medical intern. So please find ways to work with community, grassroots, women's healthcare giver, community members to take the message forward, but also parents who are paying school fees. So it's our issue as much as it's medical intern doctors' issues. The medical professionals are organizing, but please find ways to include us as well. We need to come on board because if the medical interns are not paid for, and then that medical intern has to do my Caesar, you know, Dr. Mirembe, you did 50 cesarean sections. Imagine if you were not remunerated when you were pushing out that baby. What would have happened? So I think for me that it's an opportunity for us to organize, but we're going to have to do it at multiple levels. Please include us in ways that are possible for us as well, citizens, everyday people to participate. But I think that the professionals have to take the lead on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stella. My friend, I guess I have heard everything else from both Dr. Mirembe, but also from Dr. Stella. So let us talk politics. Governments tell us what matters through budgets, not speeches, but budgets.
Anyway, before senior comes in, just something very small.
Yeah.
Yes, just to make sure that the panel is clear. One, this policy was made without consulting any key stakeholders. Not us, not the regulatory councils, which are bodies of government, not the university VCs, deans of medical schools, not the affected, not anyone. So that's why for us, we embodied a shambolic slavery instrument that we want to be withdrawn very, very fast. And I am happy with my senior Stella's submission, especially on including everyone. And personally, I've been driving that agenda of making sure the victims, because the people who will be affected the most when the intern doctor is not paid, it's not the intern doctor actually, it is the common citizens.
Right.
Now they are in the new plan, actually starting from last year, they gave interns to get some general hospitals and they want to give more to general hospitals. So it is them who are going to suffer, and we are calling them upon, just to add on Dr. Stella's, if I forget, to join this campaign. Otherwise, of course, the Honorable Chris Baryomunsi came up, I think, on Capitol FM and said he also understands he did internship, the interns should be paid, that he missed that cabinet meeting. But we know that there are other doctors who are in that cabinet. This issue is because people who are appointed to do technical oversight are simply bootlicking They have no balls to speak the truth to their supervisors. They just formulate, fabricate things they think we are going to appease them. For example, when they sell an item that now we are going to save money. That's why General Cheng did. She was a doctor. In fact, she striked because they are not cooked meat, according to the information we have, for just a week. But when she got into power, thought trading a narrative that she's going to save money by not paying intern doctors and they are going to give free national service. You know, internship is like national service. So literally they are forcing you to do free national service for, and we are saying if it is supposed to be free, then every profession may be do national service. That is free. But still that will be very dangerous. National service should also be facilitated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Milembe, for that information that you have added on. Mr. Gesa, given what you have heard so far, when medical interns remain unpaid while other sectors remain protected, what does that reveal about government priorities? What really is government communicating? What
First,
really
are you able to
is,
hear me?
Yeah, we are
I
here.
seem to have a lot of intermittence with the connection.
Yeah.
At some point, I actually lost connectivity. I just don't know why, because the weather is not bad. I don't understand why the quality of the connection just dropped all of a sudden. For me, I think I don't have much weight to add on that issue, other than just saying it's a symptom of a dysfunctional government bureaucracy, which is rendered dysfunctional by design. It's not an accident that it is dysfunctional. President Museveni cannot allow people to hold their own agency as ministers. You know, we have that notion that ministers are exercising delegated authority 100% of the time, which should not necessarily be the case. The delegated authority should come with some level of autonomous decision making. That if I trust you to be somebody that is competent enough to lead a department, and you understand the national priorities or you understand the overall priorities, you should be able to make certain calls. Now, the reason why you see, forgive my diction, the reason why you see a person like Dr. Chris Bariomusi stammering, quote unquote, on such issues, today he says one thing, tomorrow he says another. The same thing happens with the pre-current Minister for Health, Dr. General Cheng, also shifting positions. It's because they don't have that kind of autonomy to make the call on such an issue which should be really mundane. It shouldn't be an issue to attract national debate. When you look at the numbers, you agree with me. I mean, the first point I made, which was a lack of seriousness, and I mean, a lack of seriousness and focus as a people that are leading us as a government. So I want to talk more about it when I'm dissecting the budget. So I have nothing more technical to add on than that has already been submitted by Dr. Mirembe and Dr. Nyanzi. So I will come back to that when you give us an opportunity to talk about the national budget that was just read this week. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Gesa, for sharing your thoughts about that. So, if the treatment of interns reveals how a country values services, then the rule of law reveals how a country values citizenship. So let me begin with the difficult question, Council Aaron. What is the purpose of the state? Most political theorists would agree that the state's first responsibility is protection of life, protection of liberty, protection of rights. Yet we see what is happening in Uganda is that there's a continuation to express concerns about political prisoners, prolonged detentions, disappearances. Of course, kidnappings have been happening in the last couple of weeks. One actually turned into a lost person or a death. We see mob justice happening. We also see unexplained killings happening. All this despite the government investing massively into security. So, Aaron, strip away the politics for a moment. Strip away the parties, strip away all the other personalities and the friends that might have been affected in this, in some of what is going to be shared today. What does the Uganda Constitution promise every citizen regarding liberty and due process?
You started by asking about the point of the state. That question recognizes the fact that the state is an artificial entity. Its existence is now taken for granted, but it's not obvious. It's a very unnatural development of human evolution. Agreed that they needed the state because of themselves, not to serve the state, but for the state to serve them. People found that killing each other, jungle law, they felt that they could exchange part of their freedom, part of their natural freedom in the and bring in a government, bring in a state so that they enjoy their freedom, that there is law and order, and certainly that there is security. And again, you have said there is real investment in security. Uganda, I think the defense sector is the most liquid sector. It's even classified expenditure goes to primarily to defense apart from the patronage. What the Constitution promises people is very beautiful. It's the antithesis of what is happening on the ground, the opposite of what you have just adumbrated. The Constitution promises, first of all, power in the hands of the people. That the people are the most powerful people in Uganda, and that the authority of government is a delegated authority from the people who can withdraw that authority every 5 years, but also who even share in the government decision making on a day-to-day basis, and that the citizens are willing to ask questions to government, are willing to co-design programs and policies, that the citizens have the power to hold all public functionaries accountable, and the citizens are entitled to basic human dignity, to personal liberty, subject to, of course, not committing crimes, not violating the rights of others, and basically all lawful and law and order exigencies. That the people have entitlement on property. This property grabbing, forced evictions are a breach of the constitutional premise. The people are entitled to their customs and culture, that if people want to be in Kovazambogo, they want to shake their waists, they want to, if the Karamojong want to dress like Karamojong or like their Maasai brothers, they are free to do all that. They are free to worship any god of their choice. And the freedom of worship really entails worshiping any god, not necessarily the god that the state wants them to worship in a certain way. So you can't enumerate, you can't list the number of even the freedom really for witchcraft. I saw Andrew and I mean, getting excited about allegations that Kadaga are going to see witchcraft. I don't think, I really think the Constitution provides the freedom, of course, not to enchant, but to to all sorts of spirituality. The state should not tell people how to worship God. And for me, I'm a Christian, but I don't think the state should be the one to tell me whether I convert from Christianity to Islam or traditional religions or to Buddhism or to whatever. That's not the function of the state. The state should ensure that I'm secure, I'm safe. I have courts, I have hospitals, I have education, I have a public transport. Public amenities are provided for, and that when I'm late out of home, like now I may return home late, I am not clobbered by thieves. That's a function of the state. That when I go to the ATM, there is money. That's part of the regulatory function of the state, and so on and so forth. So you can't, economics, the state, the constitution touches the economy. The constitution, if it were to be respected, the economy would be healthy. If the constitution were to be respected, we would have a flourishing tourism sector, a flourishing culture industry, we would have the best education system. The problem is that all these promises in the constitution, our constitution, despite the continuous butchering, it still remains, even in that residual form, a good instrument that, if it were respected, would not have this influx of military generals in public service, in migration, in literally every sector that should be run by civilians. Wouldn't be having incompetent, biased judges running the show. Wouldn't be having a non-existent judicial service commission. Wouldn't be having a non-functional government. Would have a functional government, would have institutions which are respected. Wouldn't even be having a debate of a MHOS project, because it would be a no-brainer. There would be no basis for the military man to be making death threats on Twitter or other undiplomatic or illegal partisan statements in any public fora. He wouldn't even have been CDF, because a working state would not allow, would naturally weed out those weaklings from ascending to the harem of the military institutions. Wouldn't be having clear abuse of processes like you're seeing in the Butambara, in the case of Mwanga Chivumbi, whereby victims are choreographed and projected as perpetrators of crime simply because of disagreements on politics, because of political views. So we would have a much better Uganda if we followed our constitution, despite the fact that the constitution has been butchered, despite the fact that what we have as the strongest lever and institution of the state now is the military. And by the military, we are really not talking about a professional military, but a family suffocated military. The first family which acts like a military institution. I think I should stop there for the time being, unless there is another question, because I wanted to be very specific to the question.
Yeah, well, let me push you back a little bit. Governments often argue that security concerns justify extraordinary measures. Every government literally says that. So where is the fine line? At what point does security become an excuse for undermining constitutional rights?
You see, they forget that the military itself is a creature of the Constitution. The Constitution is a creature of the people. It comes from the people. And the people allocate powers to different states, different institutions of the state. And the military is a part of the executive. It's under the executive wing, and its powers are clearly delineated. And the military is supposed to serve not the interest of one man at the helm, one president, but the military is supposed to defend the entire national borders and also the national ethos, the national constitution. The military is not supposed to swear to protect just one man. They are supposed to protect the constitution and the territorial integrity of that whole country. So there is no inherent confrontation between the constitution or the people are on the one hand and security on the other. That is a false dichotomy that the manipulators and the propagandists want to draw. A strong constitution is a guarantor of and an enabler of constitutionalism. If you have a constitution that is strong, you will have a strong military, and vice versa. Once you have a strong patriotic military itself, it can be a guarantor for constitutionalism. And so there is no such a thing. No, the line is there. When the military crosses and starts violating human rights, if the military injects itself in politics, if the military is not subordinate to civilian authority, if the military is doing the job of police, of immigration or other civilian authorities, that is unconstitutional, and it pulls the military away from its constitutional functions of national defense into policing, into politics, and weakens it. So whenever you see a military that is doing non-military functions, it means that it is foregoing, it comes at the cost of core military functions. And normally such a militaries are being run like mercenary armies. You hear that it is in this country not to serve Ugandan interests, but maybe to serve a certain dictator. You hear that the Salva Kiir would not be just in power for 1 week if UPDF was here. Then you hear that those people who are artificially supported to dictate, that is Tanzania, they also reciprocate. If we have an election here, you hear that the people who were marching, they were not looking like Uganda. Some of them didn't know Uganda, or some of them were speaking just Swahili or the languages of Sudan. A military that assumes a conflict between the constitution and security is dangerous for the nation, is dangerous for the long-term defense and security of the country, and is incompetent and structurally weak. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Council Aaron Kiza. You have definitely painted a clearer picture of what the government should do, what the Constitution says, and how citizens should enjoy their rights. I'm going to invite my friend Stella. Dr. Stella, you have consistently spoken about the human cost of state power. Now let us move beyond the law, and let us talk about families and about communities. Tell us what happens to a society when fear becomes normalized.
Right. So I mean, when Councillor Aaron was speaking, I think for me, I am struck by the contrast between the ideal which Aaron paints for us. That is, for me, it's very illusory. We don't have that in the Uganda that I left behind. I mean, Aaron has been my lawyer in different, representing me in different criminal and civil matters, representing my family. And I think there is a longing, there's a yearning for what should be. Those things, Aaron, you're describing are what would happen under a civilian order. We don't have a civilian order. It doesn't matter how hard we pretend. Museveni at one point left his combat and he used to walk around in in civilian clothes. But every time he has to make an important point, he will still wear his military fatigues. And so for me, there is no pretension about having a civilian order at all, having the military subservient or under civilian guidance, even if it's collective civilian will. What we actually have, we don't have any pretensions to a democracy. I don't know what Aaron is talking about. Everything that Aaron describes for me stands against the logic of Museveni's military corrupt dictatorship. So we have a pseudo-democracy, which with pretensions of having all these organs working. But I think for me, when Aaron was talking about security, I was wondering whose security? The military is there to guard the security of the people. No, the NRA, the UPDF army, is really Museveni's army, which serves Museveni's interests, ensures Museveni's security, ensures Museveni's safety, ensures that the dream of a continued life presidency, or should he die, the takeover by family rule, is entrenched. So whose justice? It's the justice of the military. We've seen it. We are seeing it progressively, even when our constitutional court makes particular decrees. So again, as a person, a lay Ugandan woman who is grieving together with a grieving family whose son was murdered through mob justice, for example. Why did those Ugandan border men, if they're indeed border men and not a cartel of thugs, pretending to ride borders, why did they take the law in their hands? Is it because they're tired of a judicial system that serves a military regime and does not serve civilian interests? Or if I were Kizza Besigye's family, Kizza Besigye's political party, Kizza Besigye's patients, Kizza Besigye's neighbors in Kasangati, Kizza Besigye's party members, whether it's PFF or FDC or whichever, those of us who look up to him, what would the constitution mean for us today if we ally ourselves with Kizza Besigye or the political prisoners? Yasin Machete. If I were Yasin Machete's sister-in-law, what does this current regime mean for me? It's all military dictatorship. That is why people are running to PLU. Academics, PhD, Ugandan academics who have PhDs, the intelligentsia in Uganda are all flocking to PLU because that is where the deal is. That is where one can negotiate with military power with a futuristic sort of perspective. Families, poor women who rely on the hoe to dig and take their children to school, judiciary, Henry Musaga. Council Aaron, you're very quickly becoming irrelevant. Your profession is becoming totally irrelevant to those of us who are not close to power, not close to the military, not close to the corrupt system. We are all, so the logic for me, the logic of the law today is the logic of a military corrupt order. Military in terms of the politics, corruption in terms of the economics. Anybody working outside it, we don't have a viable sort of opposition, whether it's trade unions or women's bodies or political parties or civil society organization or old men who are not afraid of the impending weight of this corrupt military dictatorship. So what does constitutionalism, rule of law, security, safety, justice, what do they look like? And I think more and more we then get all this mob justice that's happening on the streets, because if Kizza Besigye cannot afford justice, who can? Who? If Kizza Besigye, who treated Museveni in the Bush War, cannot get justice through the systems that exist, who can? Stella Nyazi, Joel Mirembe, medical interns, Egesa. Maybe Egesa, who is close to state and is a strategist.
Who tells you?
If Aaron Kizza was abused using the very same judicial system, Aaron Kizza, a well-respected lawyer, one of the creme de la creme, he was abused through the justice system. What is this constitutionalism? He says, Aaron, Onyumyamanda's is Sebo. Convince me that there is an order outside the military, corrupt order. For me, it's very vulgar. It doesn't make sense. The logic of the military dictatorship is what it makes sense. That is what makes sense. That is why Baguma can do what he does. And so the only resistance may be prisoners being imprisoned and saying, we shall not go to court. Do what you want to do. So I think for me, things are really falling apart. I am sorry to be the old woman who is constantly undressing you people and showing you your buttocks. But I see buttocks. The judicial system, matako butako. Mukoleche mwagala.
I guess,
You know,
you have heard what Dr. Nyaza said.
Sure,
of course, you
sure,
have also
sure.
heard what Council Aaron has said. So one of the paradoxes in Uganda today is that security spending remains really high, yet citizens still talk about kidnappings, mob justice, random killings. There is insecurity in the country where security is invested in the highest. How do we explain that contradiction? And can a country spend heavily on security and still feel insecure?
Maybe before even Ronald comes in, do you guys know that, I'm sure you know, Virunji is in a military detention. Two of the people we are suing, Besje is suing for grabbing him from Kenya, and they are also in detention. They were his blue-eyed boys. They can't even have the balls to apply for habeas corpus because of the things that Stella is talking about. And I agree with her. But the question that was given me was, what is the constitutional promise? So the promise has been breached, but there is a promise. Yes, we are under clearly the fangs of gun rule. There is no pretending about it. Where we are really, really short of is creative responses to neutralize or at least mitigate this military dictatorship, which in truth is a family dictatorship. I think I don't have no disagreement with Stella. I just wanted to highlight that thing of Belonge to show you where the money goes. People are I agree that there is a lot of creating even artificial because of the corruption. The corruption in Uganda is so unmitigated. What they saw, what AAA showed, is a microcosm of the entire military and family dictatorship. Everyone is stealing, including the intelligence guys. They are coming up with fictitious. If they can profile like this meeting now and record, they can just keep us for 3 months. If it will help them in the process of picking each one of us, including the one who thinks she's far away, make some money, they will just exaggerate and that's what I see a lot in the disclosure for this. People are making a killing in creating weird stories, and that's part of the the expenditure. Museveni knows it. He's very sharp, but he knows that for him it is the cost of patronage. As long as it doesn't threaten him, he's okay with it. And also remember, he is not patriotic. He's that brilliant guy who is a sadist, who is egocentric, who is narcissistic, and doesn't care a bit about Uganda, but cares about how long he stays in power, how much he makes while he's in power, and is it possible for the next generation of Museveni rights to take over. Thank you very much, and I apologize to Egesa for coming in.
No worries, no worries. I think you've done justice to, the description that you have given of the president. The 40 years of President Museveni's rule, I usually want to break them into three. The first part is where he sold the democratic line. That the first 10 years, how he managed to rule 2 terms. You know, me, I have never accepted that he's ruling his 7th term. I think he's ruling his 9th term, which would take him to 45 years. So 2 of those unelected. So the way he managed to get the 2 unelected terms is through selling to us a democratic promise, a promise of democracy, that we were building something that was going to transform Uganda and solve the leadership and governance question that much of Africa has been grappling with. So he came and said, we are going to be here for 2 years. Then after the 2 years, they said, no, we need to make consultations. So they come up with the extent from 2 years to 4 years. Then they came up with elections of the NRC. Then they said, okay, we need to do consultations for the constitution making process. So the constitutional drafting committee went around, the commission went around the country, collected views. Then they bought more time. We had to prepare for elections of the Constituent Assembly. Then Constituent Assembly delegates had to convene in Kampala to make a constitution. So those 10 years, he was selling to us a promise of democracy. And that brought him a lot of goodwill from the people. And then we started the second phase from 1996 onwards. So the phase which we started from 1996, the first one was a pretense from 96 to 2005. A pretense that we are walking the talk of the promise of democracy. That is why many political commentators today will make reference to the 6th Parliament of 1996 through 2001 as the most vibrant parliament in Museveni's 40-year reign so far. That's why there is a lot of evidence to suggest that that parliament tried to exercise and stretch their reach in regards to certain provisions of the constitution and the laws of Uganda. So they tried to impeach. They did actually censure ministers. Yeah, we remember ministers like Kahindo Tafire had to go. Ministers like Matthew Ruchkaire, I think he resigned before being censured. We had ministers like Samuel Kahamba Kutesa, who was censured. So Jim Muhwezi, I think. So that is a time when Museveni was trying to give us the belief that he's actually walking the talk of the democratic promise that he had sold to us in the other 2 unelected terms. Now, the first test of whether he was actually meaning what he was pretending to be walking arrived in 2005, where he should have simply said, I have done my part in nation building. I have led Uganda to a point where we can now start our democratic journey. He actually failed the test. So he used patronage, political patronage, and outright bribery to amend the constitution. So the first test of whether President Museveni's team was willing to shed off the military fatigue and put on a civilian attire in the real meaning of the word is when they failed. So they failed at the first encounter with the enemy being democracy in this case. So these were military men who had an encounter with the enemy that I would call democracy, and they failed at the first encounter with democracy. So the test was failed, and then democracy flew out of the window. So 2006 onwards, we enter another phase. So the first phase was selling a democratic promise. The second phase, pretending to walk that promise. And then they have failed to walk the promise. Now we enter the third phase, which was now the beginning of the construction of the monarchy. Now, the first 10 years of that construction of the monarchy, many intellectuals, and I think that's where even my friends Council Aaron Kiza and Dr. Stella Nyanzi are still trapped. They are still thinking that President Museveni is running a military dictatorship. So the time between 2006 and 2016, he was still masking the monarchy as a military dictatorship. Now, we need to appreciate that we entered a fourth phase. After 2016, we entered a phase where the fusion of the first family with the state was no longer hidden. So it is between 2016 and 2026 that we saw the rapid rise of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba within the military circles, up to when he has risen to the helm of the military, where he actually co-runs the country as co-commander-in-chief, because now he has some of the powers of the commander-in-chief. That is no longer a military dictatorship. It is now a monarchy. Some people might call it family rule, but for me, this is a monarchy that is shedding off any kind of pretense. And now even we have an heir apparent, a crown prince. So I don't think you can convince me that in the mind of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, he sees himself as a first son. I don't think so. I think to capture the obtaining situation more accurately is to say that he views himself as a crown prince. And the only thing that is separating him from taking his seat at the throne is time and biology. So if biology then takes the old man, he believes that he will just move straight to sit on the throne. So that is now a monarchy that is not just even a monarchy, it is an unconstitutional monarchy. Because like Council Kiza has told us, the framers of our constitution did not at any one time intend to create a monarchy. So now we have a monarchy that has been imposed on us through extra-constitutional means. That is the fourth phase in which we are. It is the phase in which you saw the First Lady move away from just being an elected member of parliament and became a cabinet minister. It is also the time when we have seen the first son-in-law becoming a senior presidential advisor. It is also the time where we have seen the first daughter taking over the work of the presidential press unit. You see? So everybody in the palace, is trying to flex their muscles and show what role they can play within the king's palace. I think the only thing I would wish our parliament to do for us, inept as they are, I would only wish that they sit and pass a resolution to change the title of President Museveni to the Emperor of Uganda or the King of Uganda. He has converted what was a republic into a monarchy. So now, for all intents and purposes, we are a monarchy. And that's why you see all other institutions have collapsed, because we did not become a monarchy through constitutional means. We did not go through a referendum. We went through extra constitutional means. Now, Council Kiza can tell us the process we need to go through to become a constitutional monarchy. Maybe it will sit well with our conscience. But as it is right now, we have been boxed there unwillingly. And not all of us can be exonerated. I think the people that have served in the legislature and the judiciary and in some of the government MDAs other than the ministries, have also aided this. I have opined before that they have helped in converting what should have been a democracy into an autocracy that is now a monarchy. So by allowing to roll over, curtail people's freedoms, refusing to hold their own agency when performing what would be constitutional duty, they have surrendered our freedom, our liberty as a people to one man. So they have played their part. So we cannot exonerate people who have served in the National Assembly, in Parliament, over the last 10 years, last 20 years. We can't exonerate them from what they have, their role in the creation of an autocracy or an autocratic monarchy in Uganda. I submit for now.
Thank you so much, Egesa, for that very elaborate submission. I am going to share a video that I want us to interrogate as we wrap up the section on rule of law. These are very important questions that we continue to interrogate. But I want us to unpack this video and respond. Each one, I need a response from each one of you.
For worthy and inspiring examples to emulate.
Response on?
Just a moment.
Multiple.
Response on what?
Just a moment. Just a moment.
I read and viewed in both print and broadcast and inspiring for worthy and inspiring examples to emulate. Multiple weeks ago, I read and viewed in both print and broadcast media the story of a couple of young children mourning and burying their mother who had passed on as a result of a lost battle with cancer. The children were grieving and burying their mother alone without their surviving parent. A father held on some minor, obscure, and yet unproven charge in a subordinate court. The charge did not involve loss of or threat to life, limb, property, or reputation. The father was held in pretrial custody, denied bail, long past the constitutionally permitted period for denial of liberty. What society treats its children like this? Without mentioning the persons caught up in such a criminal justice system. Team Judiciary, where are your kitios and wambuses at this hour?
Councillor Nkiza, why don't I start with you? Please respond to those questions. The last
They are
question that was
nowhere.
posed.
I mean, he's asking a clear question. Where is Wambuzi in today's judiciary? He's nowhere. Chitro is nowhere. If you followed, this was at the time they were seeing him off the last day as a judge of the Court of Appeal. This is a man who was looked over for promotion. He was a model judge, if you would say that there is a model judge. So we have been remaining with two of that types, and now we are only remaining with Mubiru, like at that level, tip-top guy who have integrity, who are respected even by the corrupt judges, who are admired even by the politically biased, and simply because of their track record. But you could see a sense of frustration. It's clear frustration. He knows that the rule of law is in limbo, that the militarism has entrenched, that although we have not amended the constitution to entrench monarchism in Uganda, it is already in the streets, on Twitter, and everywhere that matters. It's the one ruling the country, but it was a challenge to the judges who are remaining behind to be bold, to not look at promotion, but to look at justice. But it was a message that was going on the deaf ears as far as the current crop of judges are concerned. But what if, even if we managed to be listened to by 5 judges, he would say that at least I tried. The situation is grim, but we can't also give up on hope. We must continue singing this song of freedom, of justice, and hope that, or even work on ensuring that things change. I think I'm happy that he has signed out in that way, using this opportunity whereby all attention, for a man who doesn't quote the spotlight, he used it well by pushing it back again on the notions that defined his tenor on justice. He was criticizing the political detention, the political persecution of a Nupu guy called Waso Mufumbiro. That's whom it related to. And again, Mufumbiro as a mirror of what's going on in the entire political opposition, being persecuted for their political beliefs, and was still with judicial collusion in that political persecution. Judiciary reaching an extent of ignoring constitutional provisions, including the most obvious of mandatory bail. So this was a polite way of shedding tears. It was he was saying that you people are embarrassing me. I don't know why you are honoring me when you don't honor the notions, the values that should define us as a judiciary and that are adumbrated by our constitution. One could go on and on, but this was a timely message, relevant. It was both polite but also biting. It was an indictment on the judiciary. But what it did also was to plant seeds of wisdom in young lawyers. Young lawyers don't have enough mentors these days. They have many lawyers whom they admire who are driving big cars, who are into get rich quickly regardless of what the language they are speaking of is deals. I hope God gives me a deal this month. What no one is discussing rule of law with young lawyers any longer, partly because it doesn't really, it's not people's lived experience. But we can't build a new Uganda from the decay that we have if it's not a rule of law based new Uganda. If it's mere change of leaders, it could even get worse, as it is probably about to get worse. You can assure that the ascendance to the throne of the crown prince will make even Museveni look like an angel. Around the 2 years into his reign, this prince, he will make people even wish that Museveni had lived longer. So yeah, that's what I can react to Justice Engonda and Tiende for now.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for that submission. Dr. Mirembe, I know you have talked a lot. You are the expert on medical interns and how they have been relating with both government but also their work. Having had other submissions from the different participants, and as we continue to interrogate the rule of law, how do you interrelate that to the rule of law, but also in terms of how medical interns are being treated by government? Do you think there's any way that we can use the remaining legal framework of Uganda to indict either government or the ministries involved in depriving the medical interns of their salaries?
Yeah, thank you very much, colleagues, for the submission and the discussion. You see, around 2024, I made a resolution and switched off TV. I think also 2023, no radio, no TV. Try to reduce social media.
And it was because every time you watched the news, there was something wrong. Government has deliberately done something wrong, even illegal, but government had chosen to do it. And the entire society got acclimatized, accommodated to treat wrong as right. And I subscribe to what Council Aaron has said about the clip he played of the judge. I watched that man and I was like, of course, when you put in that, to go that side, some of us who have been there trying to do political activism, get there and do political, we have seen guys, people's hands being burnt deliberately by the security when those people have not done anything. And many of these are our close friends, among other things. So we are living in a very terrible situation as a people. When we go to the internship issue, I'll say without fear of contradiction, several clauses of the so-called the shambolic policy are unconstitutional. Many of them are illegal. Government agencies or agents and its actors deliberately ignoring known, even like things, even people who have not gone to school know. Even my village people know that when you want to come up with the policy on the village, you have to engage the people it's going to affect, and the elders of the village, the leadership. But people who are sitting at the Ministry of Education, I mean, this ministry is supposed to build the capital, human development capital, is supposed to start the fulcrum of developing human development capital is supposed to be literal at Ministry of Education. But these are people who can't follow simple procedures. Then when you look at everything, they knew that, one, it is us who proposed that we develop a policy, and we requested for an interministerial committee where stakeholders would sit, come up with a clear, inclusive, fair policy that is based on a needs assessment, that is based on the gaps that it should cure. But then they come up, sit in their bedrooms, do whatever they want, most likely because of the monarchy mindset that I guess has been talking about. So for me, we have gone to court about these issues. In 2016, we went to court. 2018, we went to court, and Sekana then was the judge assigned to us. He made sure that he doesn't deliver judgment until when he delivered the ruling, when we have finished internship. So literally, you, the scholars of the law, will say the case was overtaken by events, delivering the judgment in our favor when we have already left. And this is what they do. Of course, as an individual, I feel bad going to court, actually, of recent. It's one reason why I said it. I want to go to court on the cases of Dr. Besije. But then, in my mind, I'm very convinced that actually the junta or the state or the monarch, whatever you want to call it, is just waiting to make its own decision. Ewanubaguma will not give us justice at any one point. He will just be arrogant, do whatever he wants. But nevertheless, we have went to court. Fumi has gone to court about 300 interns actually are currently not being paid for unclear reasons. If the current road, because this policy they wanted to apply to the incoming graduates who are last road, they refused even to give them contracts because interns have been getting contracts. Even this particular one, because we have already consulted a lawyer who is specializing in healthcare, and they have given us a position, a legal opinion. And clearly we have gaps and maybe where to hang our case. And if government doesn't respond, definitely we are going to take them to court. But the question is that we're going to court with justice, a feeling that maybe even a faulty clock at some point will maybe count time right. You know, it is very draining to operate at that kind of level where, you know, this is your father. I'll use myself. You know, I have children at home, sons and daughters. There are expectations they expect from me. But then when they begin to request for sweet, which morally it's my cardinal responsibility to give them. When they are making a request, they are already 99% pessimistic that they will actually get that kind of that sweet. That's very dangerous. But that's where we are. So to answer your question, we are going to try all legal avenues. We are going to do the advocacy more and more. We are going to continue to call out to the public to come and join us in this struggle. We are going to call out professional colleagues. We are working with everyone, using all legal avenues, all legitimate avenues, even the legitimate ones which are not legal. We are going to use them to ensure that we are heard, and then this budgeting is provided because it is available. Why? Government has invested how much money in Roboa? A project that was never based on any needs assessment. A project that Ugandans who Council Aaron referred to as the legitimate wielders of power, who distribute or give it entrusted with the certain agencies or individuals. They didn't want Roboa, and I can tell even now they don't want it because government has already existing hospitals which can manage all the cases they would ever think about handling in Roboa. There are private hospitals that government would do partnership with to handle any more cases in case they wanted such kind of arrangement. But where? Attack. How much money has been spent there? When you have Nagataro expenditure, they are spending money just lavishly, depending on intentions of the individuals, not the people. So for us, we are going to continue to advocate using all avenues available. We are going to continue to show them where the money is. It remains their choice to get that money and pay it to the right priorities of the common people or not. Maybe if they don't, the citizens one time will wake up and say enough is enough. But the challenge currently to say enough is enough is also like he is committing suicide, because I can tell you, some of us who move around in the community, sometimes the people have lost hope totally. They don't believe that actually they have the power and the ability to cause a change, a peaceful transfer of power. So what are our remaining remedies? The elites, I mean the Abasoma, those who get some money, 1 million to 2-3 million a month, they are also protecting literally their gains, because they would be the people to engage the regime at that level. They are the ones who are civil servants. They are the ones who are appointed ministers. They are the ones who are being, who are permanent secretaries. They are the technical officers in government agencies, but they are also protecting their gains. I have seen a recent exodus of people who I know are very deliberate on their actions. They have been in the opposition, but many of them are silently or openly. Some of them are even crossing. The recent one I saw, the former mayor of Katabi. Of course, the opposition environment in our institution of opposition has its unsaid troubles that are literally almost looking like that one of the monarchy, like the monarchy. And so when you see such people are joining their side, are they joining that they are going to change government? No, they are joining to ensure that either they secure the little they have, or they get some benefits, because anyway, the regime is pressing so hard on us, and we really don't have a solution. And the question I want to have to my senior colleagues on the panel: how are we going to get out of this? You know, when you talk about the interns issue, it has been here for 10 years. We have explained to this government day in and out, and they know. You realized that the Honorable Chris Bariomuzi was saying opposite. It's of recent that he has changed his stance, and he has clearly stated what one, these people are not students. He has also said that two, they deserve to be paid. But you remember, it's the same man who told us a few days ago how he's going to provide lunch to adults. These are people who have children. I can tell you, many of our colleagues by the time we left university, they had children. It's a 5-year course. And some of us who studied when we were little old, because of our background circumstances, we could not afford fees, blah, blah, blah. These are responsible people. And for those who have studied private, I can tell you, colleagues, people are paying school fees alone, tuition without even functional fees. 7 million, 9 million, 12 million, tuition only. Now, constitute in the accommodation, the feeding, study requirements, among other things. So a parent has spent over 100 million on this.
Right.
This daughter, 2.5 million per month, because that actually, in their plan, that was it, that the person who has been paying your school fees pays you an equal amount of money that government is paying, the government merit and the state house sponsored graduates. So you cannot criminalize someone building, adding on the human capital development process or program of a country. So I don't know what we are going to do, but we are going to continue to push. And lastly, they say there is no money. But when you look at the Attorney General's report and his analysis, government is spending over 300 billion on treating government officials abroad. Why are they treating them abroad? Why do, if they think they are doing the right thing and the healthcare systems here are good, why don't they come to Mulago? Why don't they come to Guru Regional Referral Hospital? Why don't they come to Hoima? Why don't they come to Maokota South, where I come from, where there is not even a government health center for? Yet according to the National Development Plan 4 and 3, every constituency is supposed to have a health center for. And when you don't have a health center for, it means you don't have any government.
Right.
50,000 people doesn't have even one government doctor. The same government is saying there are very many doctors who are graduating, so it is a problem. Yet, even those ones who are available, they have not recruited them. Ministry documents show that in the next 2 years, they should recruit at least 5,000 to 10,000 doctors. And even if they recruit all the available doctors, they will not fill those positions because we don't have 10,000 doctors in this country who are not employed by government. We have about maybe 1,000 or 2,000. So you clearly see that there is no political will. The big problem, there is no political will to do anything right. There is unconstitutional specialization in choosing the wrong policies, choosing the wrong priorities. Let us look at the budget.
Yeah, we're going to come into that.
Budget.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're going to come to that, Dr. Mirembe. I'll invite you for that.
I want to just drive my point home.
Yeah.
That that there is no needs assessment in whatever government is doing. They are doing things randomly. Okay, things are, they discuss things in their bedroom, in their corridors, and they wake up and say, "This is it." So until that is stopped, until we, the elites, wake up and take our position. Because when you go to school, people expect you to be above them. Morally, they expect you to be above them. They don't expect you to do things below them. Or so we need to take up our space as elites and tell government the right things before its face. But the moment
Right.
speaking
Well,
up,
yeah.
suffering. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mirembe. I know I love the passion that you show in discussing some of these issues. I think we need more people who are like you to passionately share about their thoughts about what is really happening and share solutions on how we can proceed. Dr. Stella, having listened to everything from the justice, the retired justice, to Council Aaron, to Dr. Milembe, your thoughts about what is going on in Uganda as we wrap up the rule of law phase and delve into the budget. But just wrap up your thoughts, and then I'll invite in Negesa to start us with the budget.
Right. So I suppose for me, if I sort of zoomed out a little bit instead of zooming in on the specifics, I think what's interesting is from the justice who's retiring, a retiring elite profession, to ourselves, I'm 50, probably the oldest that's now present. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But myself, I have a PhD in anthropology. I guess I don't know what your discipline is, but the lawyer and the doctor, medical doctor, but also yourself, Henry, like we are Uganda's elite. It doesn't get better than this. It might get better because the justice who retired is sort of older, but we are the thinkers of Uganda. And I think part of what's interesting, and I draw it from what we've all said collectively, is that from Justice, what's his name? Justice, well, from his retirement speech, it's clear that even when, yes, even when they are silent, even when our comrades are silent, they are not complicit. We are not silent because we agree, and we're not silent because we don't see. People are aware, but I think the hopelessness that Dr. Mirembe very passionately expresses, very painfully as well, expresses, perhaps because you're at the cutting edge of what the health professionals are doing, are experiencing. We are hopeless. We're at a hopeless phase. So what Egesa did then for me was to explain this phasing. So I don't necessarily agree with your periodization of the promise, the pretension, and now we are at, the promise of democracy, the pretension that democracy, the third phase, and now the fourth phase is the monarchy with a crown prince, a crown princess doing PR, a crown unhealthy or missing in action first lady, and the crown king. But what all of this highlights for me is nothing prepared us for this time. We are not prepared. The medics are struggling. The lawyers and justices are struggling. The thinkers, we are struggling. We were prepared for a constitutional disposition. We were prepared for democracy. We were prepared for a particular, we fell for the deception. We fell for the promise. Aaron repeated what Egesa said. There was a promise of democracy, maybe in 86 or maybe in 2006, who knows. Then there was a promise of the constitution. Dr. Milembe, you were promised that you would go to school and become a doctor. You were promised, the women were promised, the women will be at the forefront and they will lead for us. But it's not working. It's not working. And I think part of our duty now as the thinkers of Uganda is to begin thinking and saying, okay, now that it doesn't work, that point for me of how do we reorganize? And I think in the justice, the retiring justice, I see a man saying, I didn't do so much, or maybe I did, my promotion was, it's costly, it's expensive, it's dangerous even to speak out while in action. But before he leaves, he says, actually, shame on all of us that Waiswa Mufumbiro's children are not able to bury, or he was not able to support his children as they buried his mother, not because of anything, but because we've been captured by this thing. The monarchy, for me, it's military, it's also corrupt. If there was enough money to bribe the military dictatorship, perhaps Waiswa Mufumbiro would have attended.
Dr. Nyanzi, maybe you're forgetting I added an unconstitutional monarchy.
Okay,
so monarchy is not meant to sanitize it. It is unconstitutional. Okay. That's why the military is pilfered through.
And I think for me, are we prepared for a monarchy? Take away we are prepared for something, but it's not what we have. The deal we are dealt with, some of us are even blind to it. There are many people who think that Muhoozi is still coming. Many people have not yet slapped themselves to realize there's also a handover to all these different family members. And so in terms of responding to your question, Dr. Mirembe, I had also switched off social media, switched off Uganda. I was ready to divorce Uganda, but I can't afford it. It's too costly to let go of Uganda, because perhaps it's our duty to interpret for the people what's happening. The times, we don't know what's happening. We're not prepared. Like, things fell apart. Things are falling apart, and we're all playing catch up. The lawyers are playing catch up. The doctors are playing catch up. The women are playing catch up. When it gets too hard, we go to exile. We're all playing catch up. Meanwhile, the machinery is rolling out the grand plan, and we don't have the faintest idea how to reorganize, to recoup, to recuperate. Because for me, it's unbelievable that all the people in Uganda are rolling over to be, how do I say this politely? I was going to swear, but I won't swear. I've already said Mbatako Butako. I can't say anymore, but we're all just rolling over, and the military might of the monarchy and the corruption is also part of it. They're rolling us over, and we're doing nothing. We're doing absolutely nothing. So I think for me, the thinkers who think for Uganda, the organizers who organize, we need to find creative ways. I think it was Aaron, or maybe yourself, Egesa, who said innovative alternatives of resistance. I don't see that happening. We've begun discussing again, but we are catching up then to overtaking. But how do we reorganize ourselves, catch up with what's happening, begin to address what's happening with our resistance? I think for me, these are the important questions beyond medical interns, beyond the question of constitutionalism and rule of law, beyond the phasing, beyond the scholarly thinking around what's happening, beyond the analyzing. As Ugandans who have got lives in Uganda, families in Uganda, futures in Uganda, investments, whether it's from the heart or money or whatever in Uganda, we have to think about a counter to the monarchy. Otherwise, tugende kabaka Museveni atufuge. Tugende kabaka Museveni atufuge.
Oh, wow. I guess I don't know how you're going to respond to that, but
no,
of course,
I agree
before you proceed, I think let me ask you this, because we are not going to delve into the budget, and I don't know if you're going to have enough time to interrogate it deeply.
You may not.
But every budget is a political confession, because budgets force governments to answer one unavoidable question, and that question is that if resources are limited, what matters most? Right, and I want you to, because I've been following your X timeline. Ever since the budget was released, you've been interrogating parts and parcels of the entire budget. So why don't you educate us? What was the first thing that stood out?
Yesterday, I gave a summary of what my take is on the budget, and maybe I'll just run to the conclusion of that summary. From the time President Museveni started elected politics in 1996, you see, in that first phase, which I referred to, of selling a promise of democracy, those are the days when I was still young, and we used to see people all over the country waiting for and listening attentively and keenly to the budget speech in Parliament through the public broadcaster. But ever since he started electoral politics in 1996, the budget became one of the tools for political survival of his political project. It has never been about economic transformation. So he's always looking at how do I perpetrate political patronage to build a class of mobilizers at different levels, from the grassroots to the elite level in cabinet and the running of public affairs at the highest level. So he has stratified the society, and he needs to have mobilizers, cadres. So today, in our nomenclature, our political nomenclature, we have things like cadre judge. In that first phase, when he was selling to us the democratic promise, and of course the second phase, which I called the pretense of working the democratic promise, he used to talk about cadre judge. He used to throw it as a tantrum. President Museveni used to say, the problem we have with the judiciary is that we don't have cadre judges. And he used to say, Tetulinayo basaseredoti, to emphasize the meaning of the word cadre. And that is around the time when the late Dr. Paul Kawanga Simogerere and the likes of Dr. James Rwanyarare were going to the courts to push back against some of the ideas, the political ideas and political innovations of the Museveni regime, like the movement political system, the ban on political parties and their activities, which was Article 269 of the Constitution, I think, then. So as they were doing this and they were getting win after another, he used to throw his arms in the air and say, this judiciary, we shall fix it. You know, I was a student in both primary and secondary school during those first phases that I've talked about. But I used to keenly follow politics. In 1996, I was about to complete my primary school, and I was very entrenched in the campaigns. I followed every word uttered by President Museveni and the late Dr. Paul Simogerere. I looked at Dr. Paul Simogerere as a role model, but I used to like the cunning nature of President Museveni. In fact, I'll tell you, in a conversation I had with an LC chairman of my village in 1996, I predicted that President Museveni would change the constitution after serving 2 terms, and he would run for a 3rd term. The gentleman simply told me off as a kid who didn't know what I was talking about. As time would have it, I had the last laugh around circa 2005 when the change actually happened. So as he used to complain, he wasn't just sitting idle. He was doing machinations behind the scenes to make sure that as his long-term project gets executed, he's able to fix institutions like the judiciary and the police. He used to complain about the police. In fact, around 99, there was the famous 17-day commission looking into corruption in the police. And that is the time when he started ejecting the policemen that had been in the institution and groomed through the institution over the years. Because most of these did not pay allegiance to State House. They could have been corrupt in one way or another, but they were professional policemen who only needed proper leadership and safeguards to get them to do the right thing. Now, he started ejecting them. So by 2005, when we are moving into another phase, I want you to take note of these years. You know, I think through these things. When I told you that by 2005, we are transitioning into another phase,
Right.
a lot is happening. The militarization of the police has gone into second gear. So we have the removal of General Edward Katumba Wamala, who was then, I think, Major General. He has been removed from the police. And now we have Brigadier, who then became Major General, Kale Kaihura. So
Right.
that is supposed to, the militarization of the police moving into second gear is supposed to guarantee the execution of the next phase, which next phase I called now the military dictatorship phase in preparation for the coming of the monarchy. So now these budgets have followed the same script from those days. So over the years, we have had programs, mass cash injection programs. We have had programs like Entandikwa, Bonaba Gagawale, Operation Wealth Creation, NADS, then Operation Wealth Creation coming from NADS. Then we have moved into Emyoga. Now we have PDM. You notice
Bonaba
that is part of
Some.
the period.
Even Bonaba Some.
I know Bonaba Some in a different sector, but now the ones I'm looking at are mass cash injection programs. What these mass cash injection programs do is they purchase political patronage at the grassroots. So you have the NRM mobilizers at the parish, at the sub-county, sharing in the spoils. So they start thinking they are part of the stealing cabal. They start thinking that they are part of the ruling cabal. So it is a form of devolving corruption. It is a form of devolving impunity. So they also exercise impunity while executing these programs. So you find that there are people who complain that I have not been able to access PDM, I've not been able to access Myoga because I am deemed not to be NRM. The people who are at the forefront of handing out this money are NRM mobilizers. You get? So these programs have been a permanent fixture of our national budget for the last 2 decades plus. Now, someone would wonder, why would President Museveni and his key advisors within the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development continue doing the same thing, and well knowing that the results will not change? Are they insane or not? The answer is very simple. They do it in bad faith, because bad faith in this case means putting political patronage or political survival of the regime ahead of national interest. And national interest in this case means socio-economic transformation of the Ugandan people. That is what would translate into national interest. Now, if you continue doing this thing of mass cash injections, you are trying to pay a lot of attention to the consumptive aspect of our economy. You are saying you are putting money in the pockets of the people so you can push them into the money economy. But that's not how it works. Yeah? To put money in the pockets of the people, it does not have to be artificially or brazenly done to give money and to give people unearned money. When you give people unearned money, you create a dependency problem, which then you have to deal with. You are not spurring productivity. So we have now to inject, if we were very intentional about the socio-economic transformation of the Ugandan people, the government of President Museveni should have been looking at the big push economic model. They have been regurgitating the story of the economic transformation of the Asian tigers. But the Asian tigers story is out in the open. They followed the big push economic model. The Asian tigers, take the example of South Korea. The transformation of South Korea was in the hands of about 7 enterprises. So you cannot tell us that you are going to continue doing this and then you expect that you are going to put people into the money economy. Except if putting people into the money economy means allowing them temporary membership of the money economy, where they can, get 1 million shillings from PDM, buy a smartphone, buy a few clothes here and there, and then go back to where they were. So they would be in the money economy for a few days. So they have a temporary visa.
Is 1 million sufficient to say someone is in the money economy in the first place?
Not at all. Not at all. That's what I'm saying. So we really have to call out for lack of a better word, I don't know. The word I was going to use would maybe could bring me problems. But let me try to find it. We need to call out
to get in trouble.
Yeah, we need to call out the unseriousness, the casualness with which guys manage public affairs, and the laziness with which our economy is being managed. If you put out a budget of 84.39 trillion, and then you have 53% of it, you have the debt servicing taking 32 trillion, which translates into 53% of our GDP. You would think that serious people managing the economy would say, we are going to undertake serious austerity measures so that every coin that we can save can be channeled where it would make a difference to the socio-economic well-being of our people and also to drive the socio-economic transformation agenda. However, that's not what we are seeing. That is why you see I have put it in my breakdown of the budget, which I put out yesterday, that where we failed to raise 28 billion for medical interns allowances, we are establishing a 33 billion revolving fund for creative arts. Yeah? And so that already shows you the allocative inefficiency of the people that are managing the economy of Uganda. Yeah? Now, the creative arts, where they are telling you that they are putting 33 billion revolving fund, already 5 billion has been allocated to Kasuku and his group of bloggers and vloggers. Without a clear structure on how they are going to use that money. Today, I was taking a drive through the streets of Kampala, and I have discovered we have a TikTok problem. we have young people on the streets of Kampala on a Sunday, pulling all sorts of dance strokes, trying to create content.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know it takes place. I only discovered today.
They are planning
I
to
used to
earn
see.
they are planning to earn from the content.
And then the same young people do not realize that it will only take a few of them who are creating content to call out the ineptness and the lack of, logic of some of the decisions of our leaders and rulers for the platforms to be banned. And then that avenue of creating content will be gone. It wouldn't be the same if this young person had got a job in a factory that is producing goods for export. So while the young people might be happy that money is being allocated in the creative arts sector to help them to be content creators and earn from it, they must know that it is very fragile, it is very vulnerable, and it is subject to the whims of the monarch, the crown prince, the crown princess, and other members of the palace. They can wake up one day and say, we ban TikTok the way we have had a Facebook ban since 2021. So that is not something that we should be cheering. It is something that we should be calling out, something that we should be saying no to, and say the government and the people managing the affairs of our economy must have the right allocative efficiency when crafting a national budget. They must get their priorities right. Medical intern doctors are frontline health workers that create the backbone of our frail and ailing healthcare system. So they need to be given priority when allocating resources. Yeah? So these are things we need to call out. When people like Dr. Chris Pariomusi or Dr. Jen Ruth Acheng, who are medics themselves. Yeah?
In 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. When such people fail to speak out, for me, I'll tell you, I think circumstances turned me into a different person altogether. I wouldn't hesitate to throw in a resignation if I gave my advice in cabinet and I am overruled by people who do not get national priorities right. Why? Because I strongly believe that if you are an educated person, you can transfer your labor easily. You cannot be held captive to a system of collective decision-making and collective responsibility where stupidity carries the day. I submit.
Hey, where is the host?
I know, my apologies. My apologies. My computer is like playing me around. But yeah, I guess thank you so much for that very strong submission. We used to have people who used to resign positions. The Zilitwaolas, I don't know if you know Zilitwaola. Zilitwaola left council.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the idea of resigning has not worked in the past, at least in Uganda's political ecosystem. Even though we really want it to be prioritized. But I hope as
I can give you information. It's because President Museveni witch hunts those who resign,
right?
Except if you resign and run out of the country like Jennifer Msisi. Right. Also, he witch hunts them in different ways. Also, those who call his bluff when some of these things are made, he doesn't take it lightly. He will follow you and make sure that he makes you feel the pain. But at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Right. Well, you're muted. You're muted. Okay. Anyway, I want us to continue having this conversation, but I think we're already late. We're already beyond some of these that time that we allocated this conversation. So I'm going to invite Dr. Milembe to wrap up in a few minutes, talking about what your thoughts are regarding this budget, how this budget is going to affect medical interns, if there is any way that it's going to affect medical interns, but also how it's going to affect the entire healthcare system. I think healthcare is like number 3 among the allocations, the big allocations. What does that mean in real time, in real life, being one of the biggest sectors that has been allocated a big portion of the budget? And then I'll invite Dr. Stella to wrap up, of course, also with her thoughts and how we are going to proceed from here. Of course, I also want to acknowledge all the folks that are following us online. Thank you so much for following us. My colleague and fellow scholar, Professor Justin Patrick in China. Thank you so much for following us as well. Nalugo, Joanita, thank you so much for following us. Black Enigma, a lot of things that you have shared. So thank you so much for sharing with us as well. Who else? These are the people who have like taken time to actually comment, but I know there's much more people, many more people who are following us on this conversation. Dadama, thank you so much as well. Oda Anthony, thank you so much for following us.
Are you not reading Odu as Oda?
Is it Odu? Oh, it's Odu. Oh, okay. Odu. Odu. Yeah, Odu. Thank you so much for following us. Black Enigma shared this. So as you wrap up, my friend, Dr. Milembe, I don't know if you can read that. As you wrap up your conversation. So let me know if you have finished reading it. I can read it for you if you want. The issue of medical interns has been a national debate for a very long time, and the government has consistently failed to value them. Right now, medical interns in Uganda are treated as mere volunteers. Is this what you had said? He was probably rewriting what you said. But yeah, Dr. Milembe, as you wrap up.
Yes, thank you very much. I acknowledge what the colleague there has said and is on point. I don't know whether that is called truth or facts, but that's it. Because when you look at countries like Kenya, an intern doctor earns more money than actually the starting general doctor in a government public service payroll. Because here they earn around a gross pay of around 5 million to 5.4, depending, because they have 3 rank categorization. In Kenya, medical intern is earning up to the tune of 7 million when you convert the Kenyan money to Ugandan money. So I agree entirely with him, but I want to be clear, to clearly summarize as follows: that this policy, this move is a shambolic. It is a tool of slavery to the healthcare providers, young as they are, and it will mentally, psychologically destroy them. It doesn't only destroy them, it also destroys the incoming younger people in high school and primary who are aspiring to join the healthcare profession. It draws away that long-held belief, and actually that is part of our oath, is that we shall do everything it takes to save life. But as we save this life, we must be taken care of. We must benefit. We must, in fact, not benefit, enjoy. The oath says we must enjoy the aftermath. After you have spent this entire day saving life-touching stool, receiving people who are only in pain. You'll go home when your bills are cleared. You'll be able to fuel a car and go back home. You'll afford a simple, modest car, a simple car. You'll be able to take your children to school, but government is saying the opposite of our oath. So the reason why maybe they are not taking care is because they are not coming to these facilities. They easily fly to the nearest neighboring countries, hospitals where health workers probably are paid better than here, of course not probably. And I think government should stop the hide and seek. It should stop the hide and seek on the issue of the health care of the country. The budget and how it is going to affect the health care. Of course, they have budgeted for the normal staff. There have not been an increase. They have budgeted for some. They have allegedly, they have passed a resolution to remove a cap on recruitment of health workers across the country, and they have screened about 1,000 of them. But I'm talking about a system that needs around 35,000 new health workers, and they have screened around 1,000. So you calculate 30,000, 35,000 plus, and 1,000. It's a drop in an ocean. They should find money, whether from the Ministry of Health budget, reprioritization, Parliament budget, State House, and the classified expenditure budget, their travel budget, their luxury donation budget. In fact, just around 10% of the donation budget is enough to pay well all the medical interns, with the list being paid around 1.5 million net pay. Around 10% of the just donation budget of this country is enough. So about the issue that they call the issue, the numbers, government is the owner of National Council for Higher Education, and it recruits, pays all its leaders. Government is the one which appoints all leaders and technical people in the regulatory councils, the nursing council, the medical council, the pharmaceutical board, and part of TSU. So they should regulate entry, know the numbers, but when you admit the students, track them, know how many have progressed to year 2, know how many have gone to year 3. If you talk about quality, let them bring, let us speak from the best practices, like the US, have a national exam at the biomedical exit, then have a national exam at year 4 of medical school, such that whoever goes to year 5, because you know year 5, there is a deliberate tendency to allow these students more ability to work independently. So before they go to that level, even before they should constitute, of course we know this exam in the current environment, it will be manipulated by the system to favor certain groups. But then maybe let us give it a try. Let us close our eyes. Then let us use the National Planning Authority. I don't know whether that authority is still existing, because I've not seen its impact as an individual. Where is national planning? Where is foresight? We should be seeing how many intern doctors we want in the next 10 years. And then plan for the resources to pay them, resources to train them during school, because government has a responsibility to control quality even in private schools. But I can tell you there is a medical council. At some point it has lacked resources to go and enforce quality checks. And then someone comes up and say, when we don't pay those ones who have qualified from private universities, then we are enforcing quality. Which kind of quality is that? Lastly, but not least, the common people, us, the parents of Mirembe Joel, who is not rich, my children, my friends' network. Then there is the other citizen who is not actually like me. Those guys who are earning like 100,000 a month maximum from their gardens, from the factory workers. you are the people who are going to be negatively affected by non-pay, by frustrated doctors being deployed in these hospitals. So you have a responsibility to ensure that if they are not paid, they should also not be deployed to those government facilities. Anyone to be deployed, government should first give them the contract, like they have been doing, the contract of how much they are going to be paid and at what rate, when, among other things. Then, lastly, the political patronage that's happening. We are going to solve that. I also don't know. But unfortunately, most of the conversations are focusing on talking about what's happening. I don't know whether there are some hidden groups that are talking about the solution, because we know the solution, but how are we implementing the solution and making sure we don't get back to where we have been? With those very many comments, I want to applaud and thank the colleagues who have accepted to be part of this session. I want to ask Ugandans that make sure that the intern doctors are paid and paid right. I want to ask you to call your area member of parliament and task them to get to action. This is more than Toji Kwatako for you, because it's about your own life. Government should know that a productive, a healthy population is the productive population. And a productive population is what is going to drive us to better innovations and the so-called 50-something economy that they are trading to us, the common people, or the common people. After all, the common people are not even understanding that. Thank you very much for God and my country. Sabasajja Kabaka of Uganda, Awangale, service with honor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mirembe. Dr. Stella, your final remarks based on everything that we have discussed today.
I suppose for me, I'll end with just saying I'm encouraged that everybody who's participated, including those whose videos you shared, every name that has been called, whether it was Waisa Mufumbiro or Kiza Besije, or we are, you know, we are aware, and we may be silent, but we have a hand on the pulse. So Dr. Mirembe is talking about the intern doctors, and he's calling for Ugandans to participate. Aaron Kiza talked about the promise of the Constitution, and you know, we had the justice who, even upon retirement, talked about the failures within the system, the judicial system, but he's sort of doing his role, indicting one last sentence, one last conviction, you know. I guess here has been analyzing things, and you know, for us, and I think Henry, you're congregating us. Without going into my points around the budget, because I had a few points to make, really from the position of what money is in whose pockets, and you know, I wanted to have, you know, I had questions around the domestic borrowing. And
please tell us.
Do we have time?
Well,
it's half. So, but yeah, no, because part. So who is earning from the? For whom does the budget work if it's not servicing the corrupt dictatorship? Yeah. And, you know, many people are talking about the different sectors, you know, oil and gas, agricultural, industry, industrialization. People are talking about all of that. But I was thinking more in terms of this woman who, you know, like who away from the eating class. And the eating class, I don't just mean the political elite. I also mean a number of, you know, the Myoga people who are, and the PDM people who are benefiting, those who are benefiting through patronage, those who are working. And I thought for me that one of the things I was interested in is in terms of the funding, like where the money is going to come from. away from borrowing, away from Uganda Revenue Authority, and there was the borrowing, and people have been dwelling a lot on the domestic borrowing. And so I was wondering who in Uganda is funding this budget? Who is lending to government? And so one said to me, it's the commercial banks. And then, how many commercial banks does Uganda have? How many of those that people are saying, about 30, maybe 27, maybe 26, how many of those are Ugandan commercial banks? How many of those banks? And then I discovered it's maybe 5, maybe 4. So not even a quarter of the domestic borrowers are Ugandan. And so my question in terms of who has money, they're talking about growth, economic growth, who has grown, who has benefited away from the patronage? How are Ugandans, where is this economic growth reflected? And I thought it's with the borrowers, because again, part of the budget was also specific to financing debt. So paying back debt, paying back domestic arrears, from service providers who are not paid. So those two are going to benefit. And then I think in terms of everyday Ugandans, those we would expect to have money, medical interns, their parents, their patients actually are crying. And so in terms of for whom the budget 2026-2027 works, I don't know to what extent everyday Ugandans are benefiting, especially Ugandans who have refused to yield to the patronage, Ugandans for whom a work ethic would work, for whom is this budget meaningful? And I think for me, I have many more questions than answers. But, and the other point I thought for me, if the institutions were working, I'm really interested in questions around fiscal discipline. Who is overseeing all the borrowing we're going to do? Who is overseeing implementation? Who is following up? And I think, who oversees the money that goes to security? What does it do? Who oversees the classifieds? Who oversees the borrowing? Who oversees even the loan? People are complaining about the loan towards irrigation that was passed just, within the first few days of the budget. And so I think for me, I had just more questions than answers. I don't think that the 1 minute I had was sufficient, but I suppose there's hope that Ugandans are questioning from all of our discussions today, whether it's from the health sector, the judicial, legislative, the legal sector, the scholars and strategists and people who are aware of governance issues in Uganda, the analysts and commentators. It seems to me that we are aware and conscious, and we just need to work together in innovative ways to build resistance around this monarchy, the military monarchy. And I think what I want to do is to thank Egesa for giving us a language and a scheme of how to plot the political times we are in, but also to thank very much Dr. Mirembe for bringing the pain of our professionals. When I was young, when my children were young, we all wanted to be doctors. My father was a medical doctor. I wanted to be a medical doctor until I saw blood. But many of us study with the dream of becoming either a medical doctor or a lawyer. So even Council Aaron was here saying, if sciences are bad, even arts are bad. So the creme de la creme of Uganda, you've been here and you're quite openly sharing. You have the pulse of what's happening. Akatima ka Uganda wekakuba tata 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 tata. Kakuba namwe mukuba tata tata tata. And the questions I'm asking from exile are the questions on everyone's mind, whether you're in Uganda or not. So maybe if we come together having realized everything is failing and we are not well equipped to face the times. I know maybe, I guess I want a minute to answer the question about which way Uganda. I raise many questions. Some of them will not have ready answers, but maybe it's now time to keep asking the questions and coming together in a very tentative mode to ask questions before we come up with new answers, because the old answers are not efficient, they're not sufficient. And so for me, as a person who is interested very much in thinking and thought and innovation around thought, I'm looking for new answers for Uganda, new models, new ways to build resistance, because we shall not all yield to Muhoozi, even when his father seems to think they have mastered the craft of rolling us. But thank you very much, Henry. I look forward to next week. I want to hear what Egesa has to say. And people in Uganda, I'm looking forward to hearing the solution to the medical interns, because I haven't had any solution as yet. Answer, Teddy, wait. Teddy.
Someone has just sent me a comment here saying that if government is saying that when you are fresh, you should not be paid, then all MPs who have just joined parliament this year should not be paid for an entire year, and the payment starts in the second year.
That's an interesting approach. Dr. Stella, I don't know what you think about that, but Egesa, there's so many
that's called Logic 101. So you see, Dr. Stella Nyanzi said that she buried the dream of being a medical doctor at the first sight of blood. My story was not so different. I joined Senior 5 with B1s in all the sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and additional mathematics, thinking that, okay, I never had that belief that I would be a medical doctor, but pressure from my sisters was pushing me there. So I went to offer PCBM. And in the first 2 days, I got to know that there is anatomy, even for those that would want to pursue pharmacy. So I said, I will not deal with dead bodies. I ran away from biology class on day 2, and that's when I picked economics. The rest is history. So what is my thinking about what is going to happen to Uganda? I think time is not the friend of President Museveni. That's a fact. We see that he's much as he's a military man who has tried to keep tabs on the security docket, as the years have gone by, there is a lot of evidence that there are a number of people creating fiefdoms, even within security. So he's no longer the efficient military general that he was 20 or 30 years ago. Now, for me, that is rather encouraging, because it means that even the crown prince may not guarantee continuity of the monarchy militarily. Yeah? Because of, as you have seen, there are people who are haphazardly picked up for corruption within the military and then forgiven in a whimsical manner. Yes. So that shows you that there is no structured transition even within what you would call the ultimate arbiter of power in the Museveni hegemony, which is the military. It doesn't have structured transition, so it actually doesn't have proper systems, as we have been told time and again. Its strength has been on the organizational abilities of President Museveni. Now, I must add a rider. President Museveni is a good military organizer with bad faith. I cannot take away the fact that he's a good military organizer, but my problem with him is he does things in bad faith. And I've already explained bad faith being putting personal political survival ahead of, of national interest or the public interest. So for me, that gives me hope that it will be easier, increasingly easier, to dislodge the regime and even dismantle the military, either as we go further into the evening hours or evening years of President Museveni, or even at the earliest opportunity in the early years of the Crown Prince taking power. I believe that the day President Museveni breathes his last, as God will have decided, many Ugandans with latent anger that has been covered for a long time, who have political ambitions and political ideas, will step forward. And that is when we shall go through the labor pains of a revolution. That is why I think in our last podcast, I mentioned that I believe we will go through turbulence, a period of turbulence. That period of turbulence, I want to look at it as a period where we are going through labor pains for a revolution. So I think President Museveni and his family might think that they are preparing a succession for a crown prince to take power, but when in reality, what is going to happen is going to be a revolution. I mean, it's not without basis. There have been signs, clear signs. You can see that even in the last 20 years, 2009, 2020, you could clearly see that with the right trigger and the right collaboration of key players within the system, Uganda was on a precipice. The state was almost overrun in 2020. The state was almost overrun in 2009. Kayunga 2009. I was right in the center of Kampala on both occasions.
Right.
After the 2020 November 18 riots, I actually moved to the east towards where the Kafafo had started from in Busoga. I can tell you it was like you're driving through a battleground. The road, the tarmac was all black with tires that have been burned and all that. So we will have to go through that tough time. It is going to be a tough conversation. That is what I am looking at. That's what I'm seeing when I read my tea leaves. It's going to be a tough time, but it is unavoidable because we have surrendered our agency to one man. All the elites from the time of Edward Sekandi to Rebecca Kadaga to Jacob Olanya, to Anita Mong, have kind of played their part in the building of the autocracy. If Edward Sekandi, for instance, had said, I am resigning, or had fled to exile, if Rebecca Kadaga had fled to exile in 2017 and said, I cannot participate in mutilating the Constitution, what would have happened? You see, these are things we never pause to ask.
Right.
If Rebecca Kadaga had fled the country at the time when age limit is being pushed down our throats, when the parliament is desecrated by soldiers beating up members of parliament, if she had fled to exile, if she had run to the embassy of a different country and said, I'm seeking refuge here, I cannot participate or preside over a house of the people that has been desecrated, what would have happened? The story of Uganda's politics could have been a little bit different or even substantially different.
Yeah.
These people did not have the balls. They did not have the willingness to do this. So they gave us in. So how can we be blaming the foot soldiers for not coming to the streets? How can we be blaming the elites who have chosen to switch off TV and avoid reading newspapers? Dr. Mirembe, I've also been in that phase until I discovered it is a self-defeating phase. You have to get out of that because nobody is comfortable, nobody is safe in a sinking ship. Even if you stop reading the newspapers, you stop watching the TV, you stop listening to radio, at the end of the day, you are inside a sinking ship. You will also suffer the same fate as the very people who are architecting it and the very people who are, who are trying to use whatever means they have or they can to try and push back. So we have to keep on this civic engagement, keep on educating people, keep on encouraging, motivating people, mobilizing. The time President Museveni leaves, Uganda will be a different Uganda. I personally have the conviction that Muhoozi Kainerugaba will not run Uganda for even a year. I do not see any evidence to the contrary. I do not see any strategy with the SPLU. I do not see any signs that show me that he has what it takes to take Uganda forward. With the anger that is sitting, in fact, I'll end with this one. On Friday, I met a group of people who were commenting about these conversations that we are holding. And then one person, very quiet, he said one thing. He said, "You guys are joking. You keep talking about General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, blah, blah, blah. But the day he ascends to the presidency, I'll pick up arms." And for me, that's summarized everything. There are people who have anger, but they're just quiet. And they should not be underestimated. The Museveni family should not underestimate these people. So I will sign out at that point.
Just one quick point, Henry, if I may. I think for me, I've listened to you all the way, and I just think so one thing maybe we'll talk about in future is, as we wait for the revolution, what are we doing in the meantime as we mark time to wait for the revolution? But I think for me, much more importantly, that I am 100% sure that if Muzei was difficult to beat, we can beat Muhoozi hands down if we come together. The Ugandans who have been disabled and paralyzed by the cunning of dictator Yoweri Museveni are aware, and maybe I will not pick a gun like your comrade Egesa, the silent comrade who said he'll pick a gun, but there are Ugandans who are just waiting. I will come home to join whoever. But I think a much more strategic sort of question is, as we wait, because time is a solver of many things for weak people. As we wait, what are we doing as
Dr. Nyanzi, we may not reveal what we are doing now here in a public forum.
Very good, very good, very good.
But yes, just like the NRA.
Oyagala kuleta drone. Oyagala drone zituchime.
Because there are people who are at home, it's good to know that, yeah, things are happening. That's why go to work, Comrade Joel Mirembe, do your work, organize. Let's not lose hope. Sometimes Uganda is so hopeless, but don't lose hope, because wherever we are, to marking a time is coming. A time is coming very, very soon. And I think for me, if Muzei has been hard to beat, Muhoozi, we shall deal with in due course.
All right. I don't know if I should say amen to that, but I'm sure what I can say right now is thank you so much for continuing to share in some of these conversations. It's very flattering to have people who are passionate about different issues share their ideas, especially at a time such as this. Council Aaron dropped off because his phone battery drained. But I want to send my sincere thanks to him as well. The rest of the folks, thank you so much, Dr. Stella, Dr. Mirembe, and of course, Comrade Egesa. It's always a pleasure to serve you. For the folks who are following us online, thank you for following us. My deepest apologies for going over the prescribed time, but that's the advantage of having these platforms. You are not restricted by time. Even when we might be restricted by time, we always have some sort of leeway for folks who are continuing to share these conversations. We convene once a week, so 3 hours once a week is not too much, even though we prescribe 2 hours a week. 2 hours a week, yeah, for sure. I think 3 hours going beyond for an hour is not such a big deal for now, until we have clarity on how we can answer certain questions and how we can continue to question certain answers. So today we have discussed doctors. We have also discussed prisons as well as budgets. The question now is, how do we proceed from here? How do we proceed from here? I think that's a question that we can continue to respond to as we continue to engage in these very important conversations. I think ultimately, the larger topic today was that we discussed the relationship between people and power, because a nation's character is not revealed when leaders speak. It is revealed when citizens need healthcare. It is also revealed when citizens seek justice, when citizens look at a budget and ask themselves, was I included in the future that is being funded? And I think those are the real questions that we need to interrogate, because at the end of that day, that is the real state of the nation. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk soon. God bless you. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your World Cup for those who are streaming, and see you next Sunday. My name is Henry Salim for the State of the Nation.
Yeah, Stella, congratulations to your children. I saw they were graduating from foreign land.
Sure. Congratulations.
This is the state of the nation. Irifa Mwanga. We are deliberate, we are reasonable, we are uncensored. The state of the nation with Henry Salim.